In this week's video, we're going to look at using wire nettings for a gorgeous foam-free design using some beautiful soft stem flowers. If this is something that you would like to learn, come and join me for today's tutorial. Welcome back to another tutorial. This time we're going foam free and I'm going to be using wire netting to hold my flowers into place. And one of the factors in creating foam free designs, if you're using wire netting, is that you really need to have quite a deep container. And the reason for that is that it needs to hold a substantial amount of water and you don't want to risk it tipping over, particularly if it's for a table centre. So realistically, this is probably the most shallow I would go for a table arrangement. This is probably about 1 inch in depth. You don't need a huge amount of wire netting, you just need enough to support the flower stems. And if you've got big, thick stems, then you need to have a wider gauge wire netting. And you'll notice I'm not calling it chicken wire. And the reason for that is chicken wire is a 1 gauge wire, whereas you might need to use a smaller gauge wire or a bigger gauge wire. So basically, wire netting comes in different sizes and it does different jobs. This one has a diameter of about 1 inch, and this is a plastic coated wire netting, which means I can wash it and reuse it time and time again. It needs to be sterilised in between uses, otherwise the bacteria will cross-contaminate. And not using floral foam in designs is fantastic. It's definitely the way forward. It's still, in some ways, a bit impractical in a traditional high street florist shop because there are still so many designs that need floral foam. But if you're looking to use more eco-friendly, more sustainable, all these sort of trendy words that are being used at the moment, then you really need to also consider your flower buy-in, because it's not really very good if you're going to keep importing flowers from different parts of the world at different times of the year that have been grown in greenhouses, flown all the way around the world and then transported to you, because that has just as much impact on the environment as using the green floral foam. If you're composting material, you shouldn't really be composting anything that's dyed or has a preservative on it, because that is going to contaminate your compost. So becoming environmentally friendly and sustainable has lots of elements to it, not just moving away from using floral foam. So you need to consider all different options. But what I've done here is I've rolled the wire netting so it sits nicely in my container, and I've attached it with some natural string. Again, you shouldn't be using plastic tape to hold your wire netting in, because that's, again, a single-use plastic. And then we're going to top that up with water. Now I'm going to be using some coloured gyp. This is dyed gyp, and this is done at the growers. And again, it's not a process that's particularly good for the environment. This is a florist grade that I've bought through the florist supplies. You can also buy it here in the supermarket in the UK. So what you would really need to consider is just arranging with flowers that are in the season and that have come from an area very close to you, which then makes it more sustainable and more environmentally friendly. And I'm going to start by just weaving through some pieces of ivy, because this is going to help cover that wire netting. So just like you would do with floral foam, you need to cover your mechanics and make sure that that wire netting is completely covered. You can go a little bit free flowing and make it a bit more organic, which I think suits this style of arranging rather than trying to make a really formal shape. And don't panic too much if little bits of material spring out of the wire netting every now and again. You've just got to get used to that, because you don't get that formal structure and that set placement like you do with floral foam. I know lots of the viewers really struggle with wire netting, and I think it's because you're slightly overthinking and you're trying to create those geometric shapes that we do in floral foam. Let the flowers speak for themselves. If you want length in an arrangement, then you have to pick something that naturally has length to it, so long tendrils of ivy or clematis, longer pieces of greenery to create the outside. You don't have the flexibility with the wire netting as you do with foam to create downward movement if your material isn't naturally growing downwards. So you've got to be really selective with the flower choice that you have. Now I've gone with flowers that are fairly seasonal. Some of them have been imported from abroad, some of them are from the UK. It's very difficult at this time of the year to only use locally grown flowers. I'm filming in February and there's not a great deal available to me from my local growers. But if I was buying on a larger scale, then there are many UK growers. Evolve Flowers, if you want to have a look at Evolve Flowers online, Helen there has got links to lots of UK growers who can provide you with flowers at this time of the year. There's also the fabulous Alstroemeria grower, Ben down in Crosslands Farm. So there's lots of places where you can go if you live locally and source some flowers. So what I've done here is I've just aimed to cover some of my mechanics. We've got some long tendrils of the ivy and some clusters of gyp there in the middle. Ivy is locally grown, the gyp is imported. I've got a nice bright sort of springtime colour combination, and my next placement is going to be the lovely Hellebore. Now these ones are imported. I needed these in for a job this week and I needed a specific colour. Although I do have Hellebores in the garden, which I could have used, but we'll keep those for another time. Hellebores can be a little bit tricky to condition. It's a soft stem flower, needs to be in deep water, and they're much better when the seed head has formed because they last a lot better. And if you're not sure about caring and conditioning flowers, if you go into the description box, you will find a link. Oh, this one's being tricky. You'll find a link to a care and conditioning guide that I sell over on the website, which will help you with lots of conditioning techniques. Now, what I'm aiming to do with this stubborn little one here is just have it sitting on the edge of a container. And unlike foam, it's more difficult to position the flowers. So you've got to get used to moving things around and adjusting and adapting as you go, because things will move within the wire netting itself. So I'm aiming for this to be an all-round design. So if this was sitting on the center of a table, you'd be able to see it from both sides. And I'm aiming just to start off by creating some lower placements to really still to keep covering. I'm going to go lower with that, really just to keep covering that wire netting, and then when I'm happy that I've got a bit of a base layer there, I can start moving up on either side. The foliage lasts quite well on the Hellebore as well, so I'm just going to pop those in there. I'm not looking to create that really perfectly symmetrical design. If you've had floristry training and you've been to colleges or evening classes, then you will probably have been taught very formal designs where the left and the right match one another, and you get that overall outline shape that we tend to refer to as a geometric shape, like a triangle, a square or an oval. With this type of style, you've really got to think about the organic nature of the material and creating a very natural, loose appearance. We're not looking to create anything that's too formal. And that can be quite difficult for those of you who've been to college and you've studied hard and you've learnt all the elements and principles of design. To then move away from creating designs that have an outline shape can be quite difficult. But I've pretty much covered the base of my design. I've got a spare piece of ivy should I feel at the end I need to cover any more of the mechanics. I've still got a piece of the string visible on the side there, so I'm just going to use another piece of the ivy to slide in there and try to cover that string. Now, if you're lucky enough to have flowers and plants in your garden, then this is a fantastic way of arranging them. The soft stem flowers, the seasonal flowers that are available at the moment, like the soft stemmed daffodils, tulips, irises, you might have forget-me-nots coming up soon, grape hyacinth, muscari, that type of thing in your garden. They're all quite soft stemmed and they're not lovers of floral foam. So they really do love being in fresh, clean water and not being inhibited and blocked by that floral foam. So this is a Narcissi This one is Floral, which I believe is Golden Sun. And I'm going to start with a couple down at the base. Now, somebody is going to comment on my video and say, Sharon, you can't mix daffodils with other flowers. And technically that is true. Once you've cut a daffodil, you do get that sticky sap comes out of it, and it does clog up other flowers. But we can't go through life never arranging the two flowers together. One little tip, but it's very hard to do in an arrangement because you need to cut them to different sizes, is to condition the daffodils in their own container overnight and then don't cut them again, because if you don't recut them, that sticky sap won't come out to the bottom. But I think life's too short. Life's too short to not mix the two flowers together, so I'm going to go for it. This one is the lovely Allium, or maybe not so lovely because it's part of the onion family. It does have a very strong onion smell. This variety is Flucon, or I pronounce it Flucon. I'm not quite sure if that's the correct pronunciation. And Flucon is French for snowflake, and it is because the little heads look like snowflakes. And just to create a little bit of height, I'm now starting to lengthen my flowers to make this look like a pretty little garden, rather than that set formal design. Now, if your wire netting gaps are too open and too wide, you're going to struggle with this part because nothing is going to hold, because the gaps are going to be too small to hold your flowers. And that's why you really need to consider at the beginning how big you need those holes to be. There's a good chance that that is going to move around and swing about while I'm arranging, but we just keep adjusting and placing the flowers back. And if you find that nothing is staying in place, it's because the gaps in your wire netting is too wide. You can either fill in with filler flower, foliage at the base to compact the bottom, or you take your design apart and start again. Now, this is definitely one of my favorites at the moment. This is a beautiful ranunculus. I think this might be called Veneer, V-E-N-E-R-E, and if it's not, I'll write it on the screen in front. Ranunculus much prefer to be in water than in floral foam, so these are really going to enjoy this design. I've paused there because I've ended up with these two on the same height, and I don't like that, so we're going to cut this one a bit shorter. Now I've cut those snowflake, they do really have a strong smell. But it's just like looking at a natural garden where all the flowers are popping up in that really natural and organic look. And I think that is oh so pretty. There's a really lovely design. Don't forget that it should be viewed from both sides. So anything you have on one side should be brought through onto the other. It doesn't have to be perfectly matching, you just need to balance out the colour. If you decide that you want to go taller with the arrangement, then I would suggest compacting the wire netting at the base before you start, because that will hold the taller stems. But it's quite surprising that even when you've got a shallow container, how tall you can go with an arrangement. And I'm still going to use all the little buds from the ranunculus, because they are just as worthy in my arrangement as the open heads. It gives an interesting texture, and of course it's a different shape in your arrangement as well. Now, one of the difficulties if you're a commercial florist, now lots of the tutorials that I do here on the website are aimed at flower arrangers as a hobby, but I know there's lots of florists that watch these videos as well. The difficulty as a commercial florist for me with this design is the delivery of it. The container is very shallow. That water is going to spill about on delivery. So from a practical point of view, this container probably isn't suitable for delivering as a gift or a present because the container is too shallow. But it would work fantastically well as a table centre because you could deliver it with a minimal amount of water, and then you can top it up when you get to the venue. I'm going to add a couple of the yellow Narcissi up a little bit taller. And of course, as a Welsh girl, this is my national flower, so I do love using the little Narcissi. Again, I don't want them perfectly matching on either side. We need a little bit of variation in height. And the beauty of working with the wire netting, not only is it better for the environment, but should you decide a flower isn't in the position that you want it to go, it's quite easy to take it out, rearrange it and pop it in somewhere else. So I just think with this one, I need an extra bit of flowers on that side there. I'm going to use this spare piece of ivy just to add in lengthways, because I can still see the string there on the side. I can pop a small amount of gyp down low there to help cover that string. And I don't think I'm going to add anything else into that design. It's really natural, very organic, very, very pretty. This one I'm going to move because it's being a bit stubborn. We'll go closer to the middle where I think the wire netting is bunched closer together. And I'm going to pop another little Narcissi over onto one side, just so that I can balance the colour off a little bit more professionally. So what I've made sure I've done with this arrangement is have material facing both sides, so the design is an all-round arrangement viewed from both sides. I haven't turned everything to face one side, which makes the design front facing, and I've used the whole depth of my container. Even though it was quite narrow, I've made sure I've brought flowers all the way through, and that will give you that three-dimensional look. It's exactly like looking at a little garden where you can see different layers of flowers, both from front to back and from the height as well. That is oh so pretty. I absolutely love that. It's a delight to work with springtime flowers. And anything that you might have in the garden that is small, delicate, doesn't like being put in foams. So you might have snowdrops at the moment. Later on, we'll have bluebells, and anything that's got that soft or hollow stem is going to work really well in this type of style. So if you have any questions about using wire netting, or I haven't given you enough information in that video, then please ask some questions in the comment box. If you haven't been on this channel before, then my name is Sharon, and I'm the founder of the online flower school, sharondower.com, and you'll find loads of online tutorials over there. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell to be told every time I upload a new tutorial, and like and share and comment in the box below, because it will really help other people find us, and we don't want people missing out on seeing this amazing design. And I look forward to seeing you for the next video very soon. Thanks for watching, and goodbye for now.